Yeah, I mean, I think the fake news legislation is a very bad legislation for several reasons. The first and foremost is I think it's going to provide a chilling effect on free speech. And this is bad for democracy in Singapore because you really want to encourage a diversity of views, especially in Singapore in an era when there's a lot of change, a lot of disruption. You know, you cannot afford to have everybody thinking along one path. And that's going to happen if people are afraid that, you know, if they report something, or if they're a whistleblower, that they're going to be labeled as fake news, you see, unless they have, you know, court-worthy evidence to back themselves up. So that's number one. I think the chilling effect is going to be really, really bad. The second thing is that, you know, the government's provided some reassurances, but these are not real reassurances. You know, they've tried to say the court is the final arbiter. But as you know, in Singapore, to try and get access to the courts, when we appealed the Marsiling UT by-election case, the first thing they had to do is put down a deposit of $20,000. So, you know, who has $20,000 to spare like that? See, we're very fortunate. Many people contributed to the legal defense fund, but in reality, that's going to be a challenge. And the government has said, oh, there's legal aid available. You know, and people are very skeptical because the tests that entitle people to legal aid are quite significant. And as far as I know, they've never provided legal aid for somebody who's trying to challenge the government on any kind of legislation. If they're really sincere about this legal aid case, then they should actually provide legal aid to Jollivan and to John, you know, because they are appealing the penalty for sharing that Facebook post. So I think that's also created significant problems. So these are the two big things: the chilling effect and also the impact on democracy and freedom of expression and innovation and creativity. Okay, so the question about whistleblowers, there's definitely the concern that if you are a whistleblower and you're talking about something in the government, there is a risk that you might be charged under the OSA. I know that government agencies do have whistleblower protections, but the trouble is that, as we've seen from some of the forum letters talking about the SAF, there's concern that on the ground whether these whistleblower protections are really put into force, because people are still very afraid that they're going to be marked for actually spilling the beans or something like that. The other point that we made in our response, the SDP's response to the Select Committee hearing, is that you know, the government is actually not guilt-free when it comes to fake news. During the Bukit Batok by-election, the mainstream media, the Wan Pao, actually carried a fabricated quote from Dr. Chi. And when we told them about it, they did a file correction. But that didn't stop the Prime Minister from actually citing the Wan Pao in his comments about Dr. Chi. So the mainstream media itself, and then of course the Marxist conspiracy, which at least two PAP ministers have questioned as to whether it really was a Marxist conspiracy or not. To this day, the government continues to insist that there was a Marxist conspiracy when they locked up all these church workers and social workers and people like that. So I think the idea that, you know, the government could somehow decide what is fake news doesn't make sense at all. You know, they cited France and Germany, but in France and Germany, the government has to go to the court to ask the courts to decide whether there's any fake news that's being circulated with malicious intent. They don't let the government decide, and then the courts review the government decision. So I think they put the thing the other way around. At the moment, I don't think so. You know, Singapore is a nation with plenty of laws. We have got the Sedition Act, we've got Internal Security Act, we've got so many laws which actually could be used if they were properly applied to individuals who are trying to do harm to people in Singapore. And the fact is that, like I said, you know, there's going to be no credibility if you try and make up stories which are patently untrue. You know, every now and again you hear these stories that are going around, and in the healthcare field, you know, such and such a thing is going to cure cancer, or such and such a thing is dangerous and poisonous. And these stories go around, but they have remained the fringe view. See, the bulk of the population knows that if you want to get your leukemia cured, you need chemotherapy. You see, basically, you want your diabetes cured, treated, you need insulin, you need medication. You know, no amount of fruit juice is going to cure you from diabetes, you see. And so the mainstream or the bulk of the population is going to reject all these sort of peripheral or marginal or unfounded statements. But that doesn't mean we have to lock up somebody for saying that, fruit juice is going to cure your diabetes, unless he is willfully denying somebody treatment for his diabetes. And again, there are plenty of laws in which we can lock up this person without saying that just because you put a post that, drinking fruit juice is going to cure your diabetes, therefore we have to lock you up under the fake news bill, you see. If he's actually saying that, like I said, the wisdom of the crowds is going to show that it's patently obvious that what you're saying is untrue. But on the other hand, you see, if you actually try and prevent your child or your elderly parent from taking their diabetes medicine, then there are plenty of laws. That's actually abuse, there's negligence, there's so many other laws that we could use rather than just trying to penalize the guy for posting on Facebook and nobody reads, you see. Do I think that the bill will be passed? Of course it's going to be passed. I'm hoping the Workers' Party will call a division and that all of their MPs will vote against the bill, but they have no chance of preventing the bill from being passed. And that's another reason why you need more alternative parties in Parliament to stop such legislation which is harmful to Singapore and to Singapore's future from being passed so easily in the future.